Okay, hopefully by now you've been made aware that the FAA has been working with the House of Representatives and the Senate to pass a bill that includes the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018. And while there are a lot of things that are part of this bill that are actually really good for model aircraft enthusiasts, including FPV racers like myself and probably yourself if you're watching this, it also does contain some language that really kind of prevents the kind of core purposes of FPV. It's kind of like sneakily written. And so I kind of wanted to go through some of the changes that are on that bill, as well as why they would negatively impact the FPV community. So if you look at the bill, there's a section called Section 349. It's on page 282, or at least it starts, and it goes for like 7 or 8 pages. And it's called the Exception for Limited Recreational Operations of Unmanned Aircraft. First point of which, aircraft must be flown strictly for recreational purposes. That's normal. We're used to that. The aircraft is operated in accordance within the programming of a community-based organization's set of safety standards. So in the same way that it has been in the past, we can operate under something like the Academy of Model Aeronautics, who works with the FAA and the government to set a set of standards up for it. Great. The aircraft is flown within visual line of sight of the person operating an aircraft or a visual observer co-located and in direct communication with the operator. So, that's one of the things that's new and actually really good for FPV. What that essentially means is that you can work with a co-observer, somebody else, another person, a spotter as we've often called it, to do FPV. So you don't have to be directly visually in visual line of sight. You can have something obfuscating you as long as you're working with someone and are in direct communication with them to be able to fly legally. So this actually clarifies that. In the past, this particular system has actually not been legitimate, right? It's something that the FAA and the AMA have completely disagreed on, and for the most part, it causes a little bit of discomfort, right? The AMA directly says you can fly FPV with a spotter. The FAA actually directly says the opposite. But the AMA has set precedent in court on different issues in the past with FPV, and they're able to kind of basically go directly against the FAA and defend their community-based organizing, their community-based members. 4, the aircraft is operated in a manner that does not interfere and gives way to any manned aircraft. That's fine, that's normal. There's a few different aspects about what kind of airspace you can operate in. It's really kind of taking off of the Part 107 process, all very normal, very acceptable, except in Class G airspace, the aircraft is flown from the surface to not more than 400 feet above ground level. Now, you've heard the 400 feet rule in the past, and that actually referred to elements set aside for the Part 107 certificate. However, they have not necessarily been that well applied to the hobbyist community, and the AMA, who supports many kind of aircraft that fly at many different altitudes safely within Class G airspace, which has a much higher ceiling. Very strongly disagree with that, and that is not going to fly 400 feet for hobbyists. Then there's another section that says that this is the point number 7 on 284 of the bill. The operator has passed an aeronautical knowledge and safety test described in subsection G and maintains proof of test passage made available to the administrator or law enforcement upon request. So this is kind of saying along the same lines that we have for the Part 107 knowledge exam, there's going to be another sort of test made available by the community-based guidelines such as the AMA that people will have to pass. And I think that the AMA is okay with this, but again, that's another hurdle getting in the way of somebody being able to fly. And then finally, the aircraft must be registered, which aircraft registration for UAS has been kind of a weird situation for the past few years, where we didn't have it for a long time, then we did have it for a little bit, then law passed a bill where you didn't have to have it, and so now they're trying to bring that back and make sure that that is in these guidelines to stay. On page 287 of the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018, there is a section starting at point 11 called Section F, Exceptions. Nothing in this section prohibits the administrator, that's the administrator of the FAA, from promulgating rules generally applicable to unmanned aircraft, including those unmanned aircraft eligible for the exception set forth in this section relating to a bunch of things. Updates to the operational parameters for aircraft, registration and marking of unmanned aircraft, the standards for remotely identifying owners and operators of unmanned aircraft systems, and other standards consistent with maintaining the safety and security of the national airspace system. So this is where it's a little bit interesting. Essentially what that's saying is that there's nothing in the way of the FAA saying at any point in the future saying that, okay, now this is no longer within our allowed standards. So basically the FAA at any time can say, this is the rule that I'm going to change and I'm going to do it right now. So one of the sections specifically calls out updates to operational parameters for unmanned aircraft. Okay, what does that mean? What I think that that's saying is how you control it, how you interact with it. So, for example, for us, FPV is a very key feature that we want to see allowed within unmanned aircraft. And the FAA, at any point in the future, if this bill is passed, can say, nope, FPV is no longer allowed in any form whatsoever. Or they could decide that ultra-high frequency is no longer allowed, so we could no longer use like the TBS crossfire. You know, there's different sections in here that they're kind of weaving into the whole tapestry of like, you know, this is allowed, this is allowed, this is allowed now, but we're going to be able to change anything we want at any point. Now, that's not going to work, you know. In the same way, section 4 of that same section, starting on point 23, other standards consistent with maintaining the safety and security of the national airspace system. So that's essentially just like a blanket statement, right? It's, and everything else. And if there's something we haven't thought about, we can make changes to it at our whim without going through this whole legal process of passing a bill and getting the authority to make these decisions. The FAA is just like, nah, we can do whatever we want. So, knowing all of that, you know, you can look at the bill and see that there are different aspects that are very important and very good that the FAA is willing to allow us. At the same time, they've also created this narrative of the ability to just take power of whatever they want. Now, you know, so when you look at this bill and you think about the things that are good about it, there's also this whole other aspect where they're they're able to take control of everything. So it is in our best interest as FPV enthusiasts, as drone flyers, as whatever kind of hobbyists, to lobby directly against this. In the link below, I've included information on how you can contact your local and state senators to vote no against this bill. This bill is going to be voted, if you're watching this on September 25th, the bill is actually being voted on tomorrow in the House of Representatives, and then it also has to be brought before the Senate. So we need to be petitioning, we need to be reaching out to our state officials and saying, you know, we don't support this bill. The vast majority of FPV, you know, we do not support it because it gives unfair power into the hands that would destroy our hobby. So I encourage you to take a look at that information below, to reach out, to do everything you can. I have submitted information. I'm going to be calling all of my senators tomorrow, and I would definitely encourage you to do the same. So I know this has been a weird video and a little bit long. I'm not monetizing it or anything because of the importance of it and the gravity of what we're trying to do. So I appreciate you listening. Please take action and stay flying.